today we're going to be doing something that we've not done in this channel before, at least I don't think we have, and that is a brush review. Kremer has very kindly sent me these beautiful brushes for me to try and test and review, and I thought, hey, why not? That is a new content we can have on this channel. And I have to say that these brushes, I'm so grateful that these are the first brushes I get to test on this channel, because they've been so beautiful and it's really educated me on what brushes can do, and I'm really looking forward to showing you guys these brushes. Now, I know these brushes don't look much and it looks really fluffy, and I can't keep these brushes in place for you. They don't look like much and they look fluffy and like messy, but once you get water to it, I promise you it's gonna smooth out and be very nice to paint with. Let's just take a look at this brush on its own. So this is a squirrel and synthetic brush. This is a blend of the two, and it does an amazing job at being both a synthetic brush and with all that control that happens that you get with synthetic brush, as well as the water holding capacity of a mop brush. So think of this brush as a blend of the two brushes. It's a hybrid brush to me. The great thing about this brush is, if you see here, the brush tip, even when dried, is very pointy. See? And that's going to come in really great later when I show you the test that I've done with this brush. The reason why it's a little bit green on the tip is because I've already used this brush to do the brush test with. It doesn't come stained like this, it's just my paints, but I can feel that in the middle, that little tip, it's only a few hairs, but it's very strong. It's got a nice strength and bounce to it, and that's going to give you so much control for what is essentially a mop brush. I would hesitate to call this a mop brush though, because you have so much control, and I'll show you that in a minute. But let's wet the brush. This is the brush wet, and as you can see, it has such fine point. This is a size 10 brush, and this is a size 10 Escoda, so it's a lot bigger than an Escoda Ultimo, which is a synthetic mop brush. It's also a lot longer in the bristle than a Escoda one. Let's show you a size 10, my very much go-to. This is the Pro Art Proline Plus, and as you can see, it's considerably bigger in the bristles than most brands. Painting with this felt a lot more like painting with a Japanese calligraphy brush than a Western brush. Now this, being synthetic, is very good at keeping its point and line and control, and this, being a synthetic mop brush, is very good at holding water. And this is the one in between that, for me, has been the missing link, where you can do really fine lines, way better even than the Pro Art Proline Plus, and have the water holding power of a mop brush. So let me show you the test sheets that I've done with this brush. Oh, and I know that you want to know how it flicks on an edge. It's very good. It's got a nice bounce and a snap to it. You might be able to hear it, you might not. But it's got nice strengths to it that you expect from a synthetic brush. This is a new test sheet that I've created. It's a prototype, so if you can give me any feedback on the things I'm testing and the layout, that'd be awesome. For this test, we are going to be doing the water capacity, which is where you dip the brush in as much paint as it can hold and then just see how many lines I can get out of it. This is release, which water release, which is where you go up and down with a brush to see how evenly it releases the water. This is max width of the brush. So basically as hard as I can down on the paper and then drag it to see how wide it can cover an area. This is belly drag, where you hold the brush sideways and just drag it across just to see what that looks like. Then this is where I try to get as thin a line as possible. And then this is where I try to paint leaves with one stroke to see how it can go from a point to a wide band, and then how quickly it can and well it can get back to a fine point again. The snake test is to see how much control you have in drawing curve lines, and if it's a little bit too strong, then you're gonna get weird kinky edges on the hairpin curves. So that's a really useful test to have. Then we have flat wash, gradation, and then lift while the paint is wet, and then lift while the paint is dry. I'm already thinking that this is redundant, whereas the lift to dry is going to be more useful. But do let me know in the comments down below what you think of this test and how I can improve this prototype. In terms of the brush, this is for the size 10 brush, which is this brush. It's the Dr. George Kremer. I'm sorry I didn't talk about the brand name or anything before. This is my first time reviewing brushes and I'm a little bit nervous. It is by Kremer. And the product, it's really great because they have the product name on here. It's 85005310. And this is a size 10 version. It is a squirrel and synthetic mix. It's €14.88 over on their EU site, and it is $18 on their US site. The bristle length is a 37mm, which is very long for this size. And the range comes in from size 6 to 18 in increments of 2 sizes. And then they also have 24, 28 and 54. I would love to see what the 54 looks like because it looks insane on the website. One thing to note with this particular brush is that it did lose one hair, which is impressive for a bristle this size. And I'm okay with paintbrushes losing one hair right at the beginning. That's really normal. And it is soft, but with a decent bounce. It's the note I made for this brush. As you can see with the water capacity, it goes on and on and on forever. I've basically ran out of space. Let me show you another test of a different brush I did that's coming up in the next video. This is for size 8, but you can see the difference in water capacity, how much water it can hold. I always feel uncomfortable using mop brush because I don't feel like I'm in control of the water release rate, whereas here you can see, yes, there's some unevenness, but the biggest problem I have with some brushes is where they get big puddles of dark color right here just before you lift it, and you don't get that here, which is really nice. And you can go from quite white to quite thin in the same stroke, so that's great brush control. It's amazing that one brush can draw thin lines like this all the way up to, this is, we're talking, how wide is this? It is just over 2.5 centimeters, so just over an inch wide, to this thin. It's not the thinnest, but in terms of just the range of thickness you can get, it's amazing that you can get that from one brush. However, I have to admit that when I drew the thin lines, I didn't feel quite in control. I'll show you another set of brushes from Kremer that they sent me to review very kindly in the next video, where I felt a lot more in control of drawing thin lines, whereas this one I kind of had to chance flick very lightly and pray that it will create a thin line. In terms of leaf, I'm very happy with this shape. I didn't feel quite in control around here, and the reason why I did a lift is because there's a brush that I'm looking for, which I will explain in another series that I want to start doing, which is reviewing brushes. and comparing them, but it's really good at doing leaf, and I feel fully in control, and I feel like I can create the thin and the thick and the thin line where I want them. And I didn't quite feel that with the leaf with this brush, but I was also really surprised at how much control I did have for a brush that essentially holds as much water as a mop brush. I would never expect this from a mop brush, whereas this does behave really well. In terms of snaking, a little bit, you see the little bit of kinks here, but I think that is also to do with just how thick this brush is and trying to fit little curves, little snakes into this box. I think it's going to be easier if I did a bigger curve next time. I designed this for size 10 brushes, and this is size 10, but obviously, as we saw here, it's very different size 10s. Then we have the flat wash here. Very easy to create flat washes. This brush is great, just like a mop brush, in terms of creating flat washes as well as gradation. Creating gradation with this brush was a dream. It was lovely, it was gorgeous, it was so much fun to do. In terms of lifting, because it is a pretty soft brush, because of that squirrel being there, you do get very blurry lines here, which is to be expected. I wouldn't use this for I definitely wouldn't use this for scrubbing. It's way too nice a brush, and it's way too soft a brush to do scrubbing with. If you want soft lifts, use this brush, but otherwise use a harder, like 100% synthetic or even a hog brush, not this brush. This brush is for doing big washes, for doing gradation, and just having that variety. And then let's take a look at size 8. So as expected, a little bit less water capacity, but that's okay, that's expected. It's a size 8 brush. The bristle length is now 34 millimeter. Let's wet this one as well. So this is the size 8 brush, really, really thin point. Amazing that they can get this finer point for what's essentially a mop brush. This one has a little bit harder time with even release of water. You can see that the middle bits are considerably more darker than the size 10 ones. And the max width of this bristle is 18 millimeter. I would say it's just under 3/4 of an inch. And then this drag texture is gorgeous. Because it's a soft brush, you're not going to get hard edges on either end. You're going to get this soft edge, rough edge all the way around, which is great fun to do in painting. In terms of thin lines, you can see I really struggle to get thin lines confidently. There's some wavy ones and there's some unevenness, and that's just because it's so thin on the tip, and I'm not used to painting with really thin tips. So you can get really, really thin ones like over here when it's shorter, but it's a little bit harder to do thin lines when it's longer. But I think that's true in just line painting. So if you want to get really thin lines out of this, keep the stroke short to make sure you get the thinnest of thin lines. It's amazing that I can get this thin line over here right at the end and get this width. In terms of leaf, I felt a little bit more in control than the bigger one, probably because the box is more of an appropriate size to the brush size. I love this shape and I felt really good about this shape, but you can see a little bit of unevenness in the water control, so that might be an issue for people. Here you can see that because it's synthetic, it's not smooth edges, and that's something to look out for if you do a lot of tight curves on your painting. Whereas if you do a lot of straight curves, then you don't have to worry about this. Flat wash and gradation, again, beautiful, have so much fun doing it. In terms of lift, it does a little bit better job, I would say, than with the size 10 one. It's a more cleaner lift. This is a size 6. Obviously, again, much thinner lines, less water hold, but I mean, let me show you a size 6 of another brush that I'm going to show you in the next video. So I'm not going to go into the details of this, but you can see just how much more this size 6 holds in terms of just water capacity. So much water holding. And this is why they don't say on their website whether this is a round brush or a mop brush, and I'm like, this is like a moppy round for me because it is halfway between. In terms of water release, there is a little bit of unevenness. It gets dumped at the middle rather than the ends. Max width of this brush is about 11 millimeters, so that's probably just under half an inch. And then belly drag, again, you get lots of rough edges. This is going to be great for coloring in some landscape. If you're doing seas and seascapes and stuff, it's going to be great for that. It's just got that right softness and hardness between the synthetic and the mop. In terms of thin lines, you can get some very consistently thin lines because it's a size 6 brush. Leaves, I felt more comfortable painting leaves with size 6 than I did with this 8 or the 10. I felt a lot more in control. I could get really thin tips, and the shapes that came out are the shapes I was trying to get, and I even noted here really nice control. If I were to buy a brush out of this range for doing leaf, then I would recommend a size 6. It's perfect for doing that. In terms of snaking, it does suffer noticeably more around the tight hairpin curves. Also, because it is a thinner brush and it has a little bit less water capacity, you do get drier much more quickly. But for a size 6 brush, it still does an amazing job at flat wash and gradation. Again, this range is gorgeous for gradating. And then lifting, it's still a soft brush. You're not going to get a huge amount of lifting out of it, so just consider that when you're buying this brush. On the whole, I would say that these 3 brushes are beautiful to work with. It's a category of brush that is new to me, which is the blend of synthetic and natural fiber. The size 6 is great for doing leaves with. Size 10 obviously is fantastic if you do large gradation and things. I would say, let's compare it to bigger size brushes. The nearest size I have that is comparable to this size 10 is a size 18 Proline Plus. So the sizes are, I would say, more mop size rather than synthetic brush size. Let's say, so this is a size 10 brush again, and in terms of length, all of them are much longer in bristle length than the synthetic one. In terms of size, I would say that size 6, which is this bottom one, this size 6 is comparable in width to a size 10, if that helps you select your brushes. So I would say if you're looking for size 10, go down to size 6, and probably the same for the other brushes. And that if you're going for size 12, well, let's pull out a size 12. This is a size 12 brush, and I'm going to put it in between. So yeah, this is a size, this middle one is size 8 of the Kremer's brush, and then this is size 12 or the Proline Pro Art brush, and they're kind of comparable in terms of width. Decide on the size you would want in a normal brush, and then go down 4 numbers. So if you want size 12, go for the size 8. If you want size 10, go for the size 6. I hope that helps you in picking the right size brush for you. So that's it for this brush review. I hope I did a decent job in reviewing this. It's my first time and I'm not quite sure how to do the reviews yet. Please give me lots of feedback on how to improve on this. The scans of this with all this information that I have on here will be uploaded and available on my Patreon, which is patreon.com/Oto Kano. Do check that out. That has like things like the prices and the brush range and how long the bristle length is, which I totally admit that I didn't cover all of it for all brushes. I'm really sorry. I will try and remember better next time. Thank you so much for Kremer for sending me this beautiful Dr. George Kremer range brushes. They are beautiful and they have educated me on the existence of new type of brush to me that I had no experience with. I'm very, very happy with these brushes. I think I will definitely keep them in my high use collection of brushes and maybe invest in a few more. I'm fascinated by the size 54. One day I will get the 54 and show you guys what it's like, because a brush that is size 54 just blows my mind. Thank you so much for watching this video. Again, huge thanks to Kremer for sending me these brushes for free to review, but obviously they didn't pay me to do the review, so everything is my honest opinion. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye!